You and I believe we receive healing before we see it or feel it. I'm going to say that again. We believe that we receive healing before we see it or feel it. And I'll explain how to work that later on in the message. Now, you may say, well, Pastor, how in the world can I have something if I don't see it or feel it? Well, let's explain this process in Mark chapter 11. So let's go to Mark chapter 11. Now, let me say this before I keep going. I'm about to share some stuff that I know if you'll get it in your spirit, it'll change your life. No. People say, this will change your life. No, I'm telling you what I'm going to teach you today. Whether you need healing or not, because see, you can use this in other areas. If you get this, it can change your life. So let's look now in Mark chapter 11. It's talking about Jesus, and it says, on the morrow, when Jesus and his disciples were coming from Bethany, he got hungry. And verse 13 says, and Jesus saw a fig tree. Afar off, he saw that it had leaves on it. He came to see if there were any figs on it, but when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves because the time of figs was not yet. Verse 14, and so Jesus answered, or he said to the tree, no man eat fruit from you, tree, hereafter forever. And listen, not only did he say that to the tree, he said it loud enough for his disciples to hear it. And so they came to Jerusalem. And Jesus went into the temple and he began to cast out those that sold and bought in the temple. He threw over some tables and money changers and the seats of those that sold doves. So now we're going to jump down into verse 19 because I want you to see something. Now, to summarize, he went into Jerusalem. He saw a tree before they got to Jerusalem. He cursed the tree. The disciples heard him. He went into Jerusalem. He saw what was going on in the temple. And so he threw some stuff around. And so now verse 19 says, and so when evening was come, the day's almost over, he went out of the city. What city did he go out of? Jerusalem, verse 20, and in the morning, so now we're talking about a different day. 24 hours has gone by. In the morning, as they, him and his disciples, passed by, they saw the fig tree that he talked to, and it was dried up from the roots. Verse 21, and Peter called to remembrance, as if Jesus didn't remember what he did. He remembered and said, oh, Master, behold, the fig tree which you cursed, and I'm going to add this, on yesterday, is withered away. So I have a question for you. What did you say on yesterday, Saturday, that could cause your healing to be manifested today? Oh, let me rewind now. Let's try that one again. Because I slapped y'all like Martin. Pa, 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 pa. What did you say on yesterday that could cause your healing to be manifested today? Because that's what Jesus did. He spoke to a tree, and the following day, he saw manifestation. So let's look now at verse 22. Jesus now says to them, because what happened is Jesus demonstrated how faith works. As a matter of fact, he demonstrated how God's faith works. And so now, since they're the one that brought it to his attention, he decided, you know what? Let me show you how to use the God kind of faith. So verse 22 tells us, and so Jesus answering said unto them, read it with me, church, have faith in God. Now, some other translations, or when you look that up, it actually means have God's kind of faith. Why he's saying that? Because God kind of faith, what it does, it can cause 24-hour manifestation. So, how many in here would love to have God's kind of faith? Raise your hand. I mean, I would love to have that kind of faith where I say something and boom, it happens. Well, let me tell you something. You already have it. God, when you got born again and said yes to Jesus, he deposited the measure of faith on the inside of you. And I don't care how big or little your faith is. Jesus said, if you just have the faith of a mustard seed, you can speak to a mountain. So you have no excuse that you don't have enough faith to do the things that need to be done. Right now, even in seed form, you got enough faith to move a mountain. In Romans chapter 4, here's the question. What does God's kind of faith look like? And how does God's kind of faith operate? Because if you understand how somebody works something, you can work it the same way that they did. In fact, duplicated efforts will produce a similar reward. And so in Romans chapter 4, this verse is about to tell us how God's faith looks and how God's faith operates. Because if you see how it looks and you see how it operates, you'll be able to operate it as well. And so in Romans chapter 4, I'm reading out of the ERV translation. It says, as the scripture says, God says to Abraham, I have made you, Abraham, the father of many nations. And this is true before God, the one Abraham believed. And this God that made Abraham the father of many nations, this God, he gives life to the dead. Who do you think raised Jesus Christ from the dead? The Father raised him from the dead. He says, so this is true before God, the God who gives life to the dead. And this same God, listen to how he operates. He speaks of things that don't yet exist as if they were real. I'm going to say that again. This God that we're talking about, he speaks of things that don't yet exist as if they were real. The King James Version says it like this. Even God who quickens the dead, and he called those things which be not as though they were. In other words, church, guess what? God's kind of faith, listen, talks like something has already been done, even though it doesn't look done. I'm going to say that again. God's kind of faith talks like something has already been done, even though it doesn't look like it's done. Romans 4:17 said he speaks of things that don't yet exist as if they were real. And that's what Jesus did. Jesus looked at a perfectly living tree and he said something to it. And listen, what he said to the tree happened. He called those things that were not as though they were. Amen. He did not say what he saw about the tree. He said what he wanted to see from the tree. And that's the problem with people. Manifested healing will not take place if you are calling what you see as what you see. Because Jesus didn't do that. He didn't look at the tree and go, wow, that tree's empty. Wow, this tree has leaves, but I don't see any figs. No, he did not call those things that were as though they were. He called those things that if not as though they were. And so here is why most of us do not see manifestation of healing. Because, watch this, we are saying nothing, or we're saying what we see and we're saying what we feel.